Hello, today I'm going to talk about two things. The first one is remembering chord shapes, and the second one is managing tricky chord changes. Now, chord shapes are obviously very important when you're playing chords on the ukulele, but before you get used to a chord you have to remember the shape that it makes on the fretboard so you can play that particular chord. People do it in different ways. Some people have a picture in their minds of the chord diagram, which is usually, or quite often with the music that you've got, the chord and lyric sheets. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, the way I think of it, is the shapes that if you joined the dots where your fingers were in the chord shape, it makes a shape. For example, a G chord makes a little arrow or a little triangle pointing towards the sound hole. A G7 shape, on the other hand, makes a little triangle arrow, but it's pointing towards the nut. So that's one way of thinking about it. Or you could be thinking that with an F you're pressing down frets, but there is a space in between them, frets 1 and 2, but with an A chord you're pressing frets 1 and 2, but the strings are together that you're pressing down. Another way that people use to remember what frets to press down on a chord are the fret numbers. So some people might think, for example, of a G as being from the A string up, from the bottom string up, as being 2, 3, 2, 0. So pressing down the second fret, then the third fret, the second fret, and an open string on the strings from the bottom to the top. So there are three ways that you can remember chord shapes, and it's good when you're changing chords to have that picture in your mind, or have those fret numbers in your mind, so that you can just think about that at the moment before your fingers press down onto those particular spots. Now we'll go to managing chord changes. There's not much to this really, except a bit of that visualization I spoke about. And if you find that there are two chords in particular that you're having trouble changing between, then just slowly go over it and over it and over it again. And even if you need to pick up the ukulele and the first thing you do for a few days or a week or however long it is just play those two chords very slowly at first. There's no point rushing, because then you just get in a jumble. So for example, it might be G and F. So start with the chord that comes first. Have a picture in your mind if you can, or if you need the chord chart in front of you still, have that in front of you. But it's good to try and get that picture in your mind, whether it's the numbers on the fretboard or the shape, and put your fingers in that position. We're going to do G to F just as an example. So play the G and then get the picture of the F in your mind, and then put your fingers down on the F. It's important to know which fingers you're going to use for that chord as well. Now mostly you'll be using middle finger on the second fret on the bottom string on the A string for a G, followed by ring finger on the third fret on the E string, pointer on the second fret on the C string. But it doesn't really matter what fingers you use, so long as you feel comfortable doing it. You're getting a nice ringing sound, and you can make the change to the next string without too much difficulty. When you're going from a G to an F, you've got to pick up all your fingers and place them down in different orders again. So that's why it can be reasonably challenging to do a G to an F, even though they're often found together in songs. So just give it a practice, one after the other, until you can do it a little more fluently each time. I'll just tell you one more trick before I go. One way I discovered today of doing a G with two fingers is putting your pointer across the three bottom strings on the second fret, then getting your ring finger and putting it on the third fret on that second string from the bottom on the E string. So that's doing, so I've got the pointer there, bottom three strings, second fret, ring finger, third fret on the second string from the bottom. And that's another way of doing a G. When you do a G like that, your middle finger's free, so it can start to go over to form the F just before the G's been finished playing, or just as the G's finished being played. So you can do your G like that and your F like that. Anyway, whatever you find easiest and whatever you find works for you after a little bit of practice. Happy playing!